Hello, hello, hello. My name is Shelby. Welcome back to my channel, Grace with Books. Today I'm going to be doing my August wrap-up. Also, welcome to my dorm. I've been moved in for about a week now. Over the next few weeks, you'll see me experimenting with spaces in the room to film in. Today, I thought I'd film by my bookshelves, so you can see that space. I'm still thinking of setting up some art prints back there. Maybe one time I'll film by my bed when I get my tapestry in, because that's sort of like a cozy space. So we're gonna be seeing, I've only been here a week, as I said, so we're gonna be seeing where I like to film best. But on to the reason you're watching this. You want to see the books I read this month. So drumroll, please. This month, I read 7 books, 6 fantasies, and 1 graphic novel. Are we surprised? I'm not. So let's just get right into it. I'm so excited to talk about the books I read. Let's consult the book. Okay. The first book that I read this month was The Raven Boys by Maggie Stiefvater. I'm so sorry. Every time I say that name, I just I cringe in horror that I said it wrong. I gave this book 4 stars. I think I mentioned in my my August TBR video, this is a book that I've tried to read before and I just couldn't get into it. I don't know if it was because I was maybe reading it on an ebook or I just sort of gave up quickly. I don't know, but I read the book and I just wasn't getting into it. So after hearing so many reviews recently and hearing all my friends recommend it to me, I'm like, okay, I think everything deserves a second chance. So I picked it up at Barnes & Noble because it was on sale, which is like kismet. So I read it and I actually really enjoyed it. I loved the whole concept of Blue living with all of these strong women who had these powers and these notions of the future, and that instead of being one herself, she amplified the powers of those around her. I loved the concept of the whole mythology that she was told that if she ever fell in love, the first guy she fell in love with would die. I thought that was all really interesting. I loved all of our Raven boys. I loved Gansey. I loved Ronan. I can't wait to read more about him in the second book. I loved all of them. The reason I gave it 4 stars instead of 5 is that sometimes I felt that things were very unexplained. They mentioned things at the beginning of the book that we didn't really learn or know about till the middle towards the end, so I was really confused at some points. But other than that, the writing was beautiful. I was one of those people who loved Shiver by Maggie, so that's a half and half thing, either you loved it or you hated it. I really liked it, so I think that's why maybe I was more receptive to her writing this time. After having read Shiver, I was ready to read The Raven Boys. So overall, really great book, excited to read the second book. I just got it on Libby, which I have downloaded, which is amazing. And yeah, so that's my first book, The Raven Boys. The second book I read this month was War by Laura Thalassa. This book is new adult. It has some explicit content that if you are maybe on the younger side, probably not for you, but I really enjoyed it. I loved Pestilence, which was the first book. These books are basically telling about the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, each one of them coming to Earth, raining down horror until someone steps in their way and sort of challenges their own beliefs. So Pestilence was amazing. I loved that book so much. I loved both of the characters' growth over time, about things not being black and white and that there is a gray area in the life that we live. And the sequel just sort of built on it, and it was longer and amazing, and I fell in love with War, and it was just the best. I'm so excited for the 3rd book, even though I know it'll probably be a while till that comes out. And I gave that also 4 stars. A lot of 4 stars reviewed this month. It's just, I had a good reading month, which is a good thing. The next book I read this month was a big one, and it took me a little while to get into it, but once I did, I really, really enjoyed it, and that is This Mortal Coil by Emily Suvada. This Mortal Coil is about a girl whose father has disappeared from her life because he is a big shot genetic hacker. In this world, you can program yourself like you would a phone or a computer, and it's a lot of... Ooh, that was very loud. I'm sorry. In this futuristic society, you can basically program yourself and have these different apps come out of your phone. It's like you can call people by just touching your arm and stuff like that. But there's also a virus that has sort of happened that if if you ingest it, you sort of become mad and malfunction. So a lot of people have gone underground, and when you go underground, you're relinquishing your rights to the apps that you have. So this girl, Kat, has this certain disease that she is allergic in a way to a lot of the apps and DNA hacking that's going around. So going into one of those facilities could kill her. So before this like organization that runs those underground facilities took her father, he told her to stay away from them. But when she learns her father dies and might have found the cure to this mysterious disease, she is forced to trust one of the soldiers of Cartaxis, which is that organization, and figure out with him how to get this cure. It was amazing. Emily Suvada has a background in like statistics and data analysis, so it was really interesting to see all of that science and gene hacking actually be sort of accurate to what it is. It was like a fun bit of science fiction because it's based off real things, and I thought that she did a really good job of incorporating fantasy with realistic elements. I gave this book 4 stars. It was a little hard to get into at first. It was very slow moving, but when I got into it, it really got into it. And I swear to God, those last 100 pages, like there were so many big reveals that I did not see coming that just shook me to my core. So super exciting. Really loved it. Definitely give it a try. Oh my God. The next book that I read this month was a big one. It was really, really big, and that was Flamecaster by Cinda Williams Chima. This was about 500 pages, and Cinda Williams Chima is known for writing really high fantasy adventure books. Basically, this book is it's from 2 perspectives, and the first one is Ash, who is an exiled prince who is hell-bent on getting revenge on the king who seeks to destroy his kingdom, and this girl, Jenna, who has a mysterious marking on the back of her neck that sort of marks her with a curse, and that cruel king that I mentioned before is looking for her. So they end up meeting up and try to take down this cruel, evil dictator king. It was a lot of world building. I want to say the majority of it was world building. Now, I didn't know before reading this that there was a series, like a prequel series before this. I didn't realize that the Demon King is her series before. The series takes place in the same world. I wasn't aware of that, so I read this first, but I found that I could still read Flamecaster without having read the other series. So if that's what you want to do, that's good too. The plot of Flamecaster just seemed more interesting to me. So I'm super excited to see what happens in the next book. This was a lot of big reveals toward like the last quarter of the book. And as I said before, like if you're okay with just like a lot of world building and words, and it took me a while to read this book, which I'm not surprised about. This is my first sort of dabble into that kind of like book and writing style. So I'm hoping I'll adjust to it more. I have the second book, Shadowcaster, so I'm really hoping that'll pick up more. So yeah, if you're into that kind of stuff, I definitely recommend Cinda Williams Chima. She was recommended for me as like a starter fantasy, high fantasy book. Not fantasy, I'm very adept at fantasy. But I'm rambling now, so you know what? I gave this book 4 stars as well. So be sure to check out Flamecaster by Cinda Williams Chima. The next book I read was probably my favorite of the month, and that would be Legendary by Stephanie Garber, and I gave that 5 stars. Holy God, no way. It took me really long to read this book, and I know that I read Caraval months ago, and I just haven't gone into Legendary because I knew that it was from Donatella's perspective instead of Scarlet, who was the protagonist of the first book, and I was a little worried. I thought I wouldn't like the book from another person's perspective, but I ended up really enjoying it. I just had so many questions from the end of Caraval. A lot of them were answered, a lot of them were not, but I have finale and I'm super excited to read it. It was just beautiful. It took the world of Caraval and it exploded it to this huge, amazing, magical world, and it gave us mythology and backgrounds on characters, and it was just a beautiful writing piece. I loved Legendary. It was definitely my favorite book of the month. 5 stars, highly, highly recommend. The next book I read this month was the graphic novel, which was Teen Titans Raven by Cami Garcia. I used to read a lot of graphic novels. I used to love them. They were like my gateway into reading, and I hadn't read one in a really long time, so I was super excited about a superhero one, specifically Raven. I did not know much about the origins of Raven, the Teen Titan. I knew her character was sort of like goth, loner, emo type. So it was really interesting to see her origins, to see her origin story, to see how she got her powers, to have that explained was a very interesting and well done. The pictures were beautifully illustrated. I loved that the entire book sort of went around her color scheme of like purples and blues and blacks and whites. It was just an overall really well done piece. And I know the next book in the series is going to be Beast Boy, and I'm super excited for that one as well. They planted little seeds of things in this graphic novel that I think will be important later, and that it makes me so happy when authors do that. So really enjoyed it, 5 stars. Okay guys, I have one more book for you all that I read this month, and that would be the sequel to The Crown's Game by Evelyn Skye, The Crown's Fate by Evelyn Skye. I gave this book 3.5 stars. I loved The Crown's Game. I thought it was really well done, yet a little derivative of The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. I was really interested to see how they'd expand on it in The Crown's Fate. I thought it was really good. I enjoyed the book, but I didn't really like how they handled one of the characters' overall arcs. He is one who we left off in a really bad place at the end of The Crown's Game, and I don't think it was handled well in this book. I also think there was a lot of unanswered questions, just things that weren't explained very well at the end of this book. Yes, it's a duology, but I think it could have stand to be a bit longer, or maybe have another book in the series to really nicely wrap that up, because at the end we sort of get like an okay ending, but it wasn't satisfying, and it left me wanting more, and it just didn't get me happy and excited to be finishing the series. Sort of my mind was like, okay, what's next? But there wasn't anything next, so I was really disappointed with how that ended and how just everything generally wrapped up so quickly. Not a lot of build up. It was just, the characters were mostly annoying for the majority of this book. So I gave it 3.5 stars because I thought parts of it were really good, really well written, but it just left me unhappy. And those were all the books that I read in August. Super excited for you guys to see my September TBR. I have some wonderful books on there. I had a really great reading month. Please drop below the books you read this month. I can't wait to hear about them. I love you guys so much. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment. Bye!